Just across the mighty Mississippi from the famous St. Louis Arch, it's a uniquely shaped oval appropriately named Gateway International Raceway, a track that has over the years provided the gateway to success for aspiring young drivers. Caution now waves again.
Oh, we got a little trouble here.
Oh, Bliss, big hit.
Caution's out. Caution's out.
Big guys here getting together.
Can't shave any closer than that one.
21-year-old Reed Sorenson becomes the 13th driver to win in 2007.
Awesome. It's been a long time, boys. Long time.
We welcome you to our live ESPN coverage of practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series cars. Stop number 21 of 35. The NASCAR Nationwide Series cars come here for the 12th consecutive year. Now, the summertime heat here in the St. Louis area can be a scorcher. And when we left here a year ago, one driver was on fire. In fact, Reed Sorenson had won for the second time in just 3 years. For more, here's Mike Massaro.
Well, Doc, when you look at those numbers, it's almost easy to understand why Reed Sorenson would give up his final weekend off on the grueling Sprint Cup schedule to be here in Gateway. In fact, he's never finished worse than fourth in 3 starts here. I spoke with him recently, and he said the reason he's here is because he truly feels like he's got a chance to win. But there is one obstacle. This is only the second time this season that Sorenson's been behind the wheel of a nationwide car. So to make the adjustment, his crew chief Brad Parrott took him and this race car to the Iowa Speedway earlier this week to adjust in particular to the changes in horsepower. That's what this practice is going to focus on as well. Getting Reed comfortable in this race car. Because the conditions are not all that identical to race-like conditions tomorrow night, they're not going to spend that much time on the track though, only about 15 laps. Dave?
Mike, you mentioned those conditions. This practice takes place in the heat of the day, so it's not going to be so much about ultimate speed, but there are a couple of agendas I'll talk you through that are happening throughout the garage area during this practice. First of all, the 64 car of David Stremme. His crew chief Dale Ferguson told me he wants to see David tell him 2 things. Are the brakes working? Does your car go through the bumps in turn number 1? And also, this is the first time we've run the tapered spacer here. What's the horsepower like, and does it change the way your car runs the line here? Now for Mike Bliss in the 1 car, this is a brand new updated race car. Mike told me we're doing a shakedown run. We've got to take it out for 4 or 5 laps, see if everything is holding tight on the car, come in and check and see if anything's rubbing, making sure that this car is safe and fast, just like we put it on paper. So it's not so much about speed, but for all these teams, there's a definite need. Let's go upstairs to Dr. Jerry Punch and Dale Jarrett.
Thank you very much, Dave. And the key word you used a moment ago is different. When people talk about this racetrack, DJ, they say it's a unique racetrack. And if you look at it from the air, it is very oddly shaped.
Yeah, and the one thing that came to mind on all the drivers that I talked with was the speedway at Darlington. Now, we know there's only one lady in black, but they were talking about it in making the comparison because the 2 ends are totally different. Turns 1 and 2 has 11 degrees of banking, so you get a little bit more grip because of that banking, but it's a very tight corner. So you have to make your car really turn through the center of that corner so you can go down this long back straightaway. When you get to turns 3 and 4, then you've got a much more sweeping corner that only has 9 degrees of banking, so you've got to get in there, let the car roll, get it turned, and get back off of that corner into the gas as soon as you possibly can to utilize this long front straightaway. So very unique racetrack, but one that requires a lot of braking, but then also a lot of rolling through the corner. And the only ways you can roll is be off of those brakes. So it's very demanding on the driver to get his car right, and it makes it very difficult for the crew chiefs to work with that.
This track poses quite a challenge for young drivers. And speaking of young drivers, a year ago, Landon Castle made his very first NASCAR Nationwide Series start and did a good job, qualified 6th, though didn't get to finish tonight. Now, what about year 2 here? Well, that's where our Andy Petrie is down in the 5 pit. Andy, what are the plans for Landon Castle in this session?
Hey, Doc, I am down here in the garage stall, right where they'll bring the 5 car to work on it, and I'm going to kind of chase what they're doing. We're going to track everything they do to this car, and we're going to see just how it works and see if it's actually making the car faster. Some of the things they're going to try, they're going to try some sway bar changes, maybe some rear spring changes, and also they're going to do a qualifying run because they've got an extra set of tires. As a rookie, Landon Castle has an extra set of tires. They can go out there and make a mock qualifying run. But like Dale said, this is such a unique racetrack, and it presents challenges for the crew chief and the crews. because of these sweeping corners and very long straightaways. And for more on the challenges of this racetrack, let's go to the ESPN Tech Center and DJ Kopp.
Hey, thanks, Andy. Now, one of the things we're going to be looking for this weekend in St. Louis is brake temperatures and trying to keep them as limited as they possibly can. Now, this is a tire off a car that definitely was not doing that. The heat was too excessive. It ended up melting the bead, and you could see it came apart, more than likely caused serious altercation on the racetrack. Now, the way the crew members and the crew chiefs are going to try to prevent this from happening in this practice session is opening up these brake ducts, allowing as much air as they possibly can to get through them, travel through these hoses, back into the spindle ducts that encases the rotor. That's going to put as much air out as possible blowing directly on that brake pads to try to decrease the heat inside all of that. Doc?
Thank you, DJ. And by the way, our Tim Brewer taking a well-deserved weekend off, and DJ Kopp, one of our over-the-wall tire changers, subbing in the ESPN Tech Center down there, giving us the update on the need for bead here. I guess that's the big thing. You use the brakes and get all that heat, you're going to melt that bead on the tire.
Yeah, you have to be extremely careful as a driver. As I said earlier, these straightaways are extremely long. You get down in there, and especially it'll be interesting to see with this new tapered spacer that they have exactly how much further they're going to try to drive these cars into the corner and utilize the brakes that they have on these race cars. So that could create some more problems for them. But the guys that get their cars to handling the best to where they can be off of those brakes and rolling through the center are the ones that are going to have the fewest problems. So it's an adjustment that they can find right now, see just how good their brakes are. And as hot as it is right now, it's a good test for them.
Looking at the 5-car, Landon Castle, and you heard us mention earlier how this young man made his debut driving for Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Rick Hendrick a year ago. Qualified 6th, was running 5th, involved in an accident here about halfway in the race. This young man grew up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I guess when you grow up on flat, short tracks, it helps you when you come to a flat, big track like this one.
Yeah, exactly right. He has a good feel for the race car, and I think that since that time that he came here last year, that he's gotten a lot more experience with these cars, knowing exactly what he can do. As you said earlier, he did a great job until he was involved in an accident, but he's really adapted to these race cars and to this race team. And you see the improvement with his performance every time that he gets behind the wheel. But this is a place that I think he feels like that he can run up front and have a chance to win.
Speaking of running up front, this driver, Mike Bliss, was in a different car a year ago, but the one car owned by James Finch, one of the cars that Dave Burns was talking about using the differing agendas here in this session.
Yeah, this is a brand new race car that they brought here, or one that they haven't run, that they've kind of redone with everything, and they consider it a new race car. That we know that Mike Bliss runs awfully well here. They were pretty excited about this weekend and next weekend being great opportunities for them to get to victory lane. So they were looking to do a few things, just fill the car out. He's gone to the top of the chart, so apparently feels pretty good. But I think that what he was after was just seeing, is this car going to bottom out? Have we got all the springs right and the gaps right to make sure that it's not going to do anything crazy?
And we talked about young phenoms a few years ago. Here's a name everyone was talking about as the next superstar in the sport, Casey Atwood. Now has come back to run the NASCAR Nationwide Series this weekend in the 05 car.
Yeah, you talk about a great short track driver, and Casey had a lot of promise as he went up through the ranks and got into the Cup Series, and it really looked like that he was on the fast track to good things happening. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out for him, but he stayed around, and he's back this weekend looking for an opportunity to show that, hey, I can still drive these race cars.
He was the youngest winner in NASCAR Nationwide Series history when he won for the first time at Milwaukee, and about 4 months after his 18th birthday. He's now the second youngest, because Joey Logano has become the youngest in series history. Lots to come your way here over the weekend. NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying, 5 o'clock Eastern Time tomorrow. NHRA Shucks Auto Supply Nationals qualifying from out in Seattle tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And of course, our live flag-to-flag coverage from right here at Gateway International Raceway, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. How about Sunday, some IndyCar action? Honda IndyCar Grand Prix at Mid-Ohio, 1:30 Eastern Time. And of course, the NHRA Nationals Finals, Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN2. Back with more practice coverage in just a moment. Our coverage of the NASCAR Nationwide Series practice being brought to you by JM Eagle, the world's #1 plastic pipe producer. Early on in the first practice of 2 here at NASCAR Nationwide Series cars at Gateway International Raceway. And you take a look, Reed Sorenson has won 3 times in his NASCAR Nationwide career. 2 of those wins have come at this racetrack. And Mike, this guy's pretty good here.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, I'd say, Doc. And we mentioned at the top of the show he wasn't going to spend a lot of time on the racetrack today. Well, kind of fooled me a bit. You jumped in the car, and then you got out. Never went out on the racetrack. Why not?
I was ready to get in. I jumped in the Fastenal car just to check my belts there, but Brad Parrott said that we weren't going to go out till 6:45. So it's just too hot out here. Our next practice after this is an hour and 15 minutes, a lot closer to race time. So we're going to start at 6:45, run for 30 minutes in this practice, and save our tires. So you only got one set to run all of your both practices on. So he just wanted to save the tires and be able to tune the car in a little bit better that second practice.
You know, when you look at your stats here at Gateway, I mean, they're nothing short of remarkable. 2 wins, a 4th place finish. What is it about this place that seemingly makes you so comfortable?
I don't know. I enjoy this racetrack. I mean, the 2 corners are quite a bit different. You got a little bit of banking in 1 and 2. Got to use a lot of brake into there. And 3 and 4 is real flat. But I just enjoy racing here. And you know, both times I've won, I've had really good cars. So for some reason, the guys can really get the cars working good here. And I love this racetrack. So you got to have everything to be able to win a race. And hopefully we'll do that this weekend, the Fastenal car.
Well, Doc, there's no argument. They certainly have the driver. He's got a couple victories here.
Absolutely. And folks, he is a 3-time winner in this series, and Reed Sorenson is only 22 years old. My, the drivers seem to be getting younger and younger every year here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. No, she is not cleared to drive until ORP a week away. No, I'm just joking, folks. But how about some of the young guns coming on? Joey Logano is back. Landon Castle, 19 years of age. Logano becoming the youngest winner in series history at 18 years, 21 days. And, of course, Brad Keselowski, he is getting on up there. He's almost 24 and a half. Let's go down to Andy.
Hey, Doc, we got the 5 car in after their shakedown run. These guys went up underneath the car to check to see if it was rubbing the racetrack anywhere. Must look pretty good. They're not making any changes there, but they are going to make some rear spring changes. Guys are under the car playing with the rear spring split, and probably going to change that camber. I think they're going to tune on the camber just a little bit. That's the angle of those front tires, just to try to get a little bit more grip out of those front tires. Back to you, Doc.
Thanks, Andy. And DJ, when you're talking about rear spring split, as the camera shows us underneath the back of the car, what are we doing here?
Yeah, most of the time, if you split those rear springs, which means, okay, if we've got a 300-pound spring in the left rear and we have a 600-pound spring in the right rear, which they probably have a lot more than that in the right rear, but we can loosen the car up and make it turn the center of the corner better by getting more spring split in the rear. They may leave that left rear alone at a 300, and they may go up 100 or 200 pounds in the right rear. That's going to stand the car up, should help him getting into the corner, but then it should rotate the center of the corner even more. Now, what they're going to find out right now with the track, we've talked about how hot it is. If you can make your car do that now and not lose a ton of forward bite or not get yourself loose into the corner, then as things cool down here, you're only going to gain more grip. You're not going to lose anything there. The track's really, as we call it, tightening up. It's really just going to gain grip, I believe. And so if you've got your car turning in these type of conditions, it's only going to get better when it cools down.
And that really feels awfully good to a young driver who has limited experience like a Landon Castle. And speaking of young guns, there's been a sliced bread sighting, right, Dave?
There has indeed. Joey Logano back in the garage area for the 2nd time. And Jerry, I don't know if you remember at Dover, we were watching him practice the car for the very first time, and crew chief Dave Rogers just couldn't loosen the car up fast enough for this young driver. So between sessions here, I asked Rogers how he was doing. He said the car's really loose. And I said, no, loose so that Joey likes it and he's not asking you to make it looser? Yes. So they worked on it a little bit to try to tighten it up a little bit, help it to stop turning and spinning out quite so much, and they've achieved that. He is now just a little bit loose off turns 1 and 2, but they fixed their big problem in turns 3 and 4.
Dave, it's a great point as you watch David Ruderman in the 99 car. By the way, one of the guys who ran awfully well here a year ago. Talk about loose race cars. Remember at Kentucky, we saw Kyle Busch, I guess, who drives a loose car as well as anybody, spin out and hit the wall trying to chase down Joey Logano, who was driving a car sideways. Speaking of Kentucky, let's show you what happened with Joey Logano. What a special night it was for the young man, starting on the pole for the 2nd time in his career, trying to get his first victory, and indeed, he would become the youngest driver. How about that for the family? How long has that young man waited on his son to be able to give him this hug in victory lane?
There were a lot of expectations, a lot of hype around him coming into this series, and he's lived up to every bit of that, if not more. And you know, something that I've watched with this young man is that he doesn't mind mixing it up either. He's only been in 4 of these races, but it hasn't bothered him to get in there and if you try to take the lead. We saw he and Brad Keselowski at Milwaukee get into it a little bit, but he doesn't mind doing that. And this is another guy that had a really good car here last year, Scott Wimmer. He had a really good car for a lot of the race, and just at the end of the race wasn't able to make everything happen that he needed to. But this is the type of racetrack that Scott Wimmer is really good on also.
You know, we DJ Kopp showed you earlier what happens when you have problems with heat in the right front. Now, Scott Wimmer sat on the pole here last year and led the first 53 laps, and then going into turn one had a problem with the bead melting in that right front tire, had a lot of heat or whatever. But anyway, the car went up across the racetrack and he lost some valuable time, had to make the unscheduled stop and battled all the way back to finish second. And I guess another one of these drivers growing up on these Wisconsin short tracks, flat tracks where he learned to drive, like a Matt Kenseth and other guys who do very, very well here.
Yeah, he almost feels at home right here because this is what it's about. And I think the thing that they have to adjust to is a lot of times when they were on flatter racetracks, the racetracks weren't this big. They've got long straightaways here where they're carrying a lot more speed. And so to do that, then get the car slowed down, you have to automatically use a little bit more of that brake. And so sometimes you don't realize that you're actually abusing that front tire, in particular the right front. And so you have to be careful. I'm sure that was a valuable lesson that Scott and his team learned. I'm sure that they've taken more precaution here by opening up the brake ducts and making sure that they're cooling those brakes as good as they possibly can, and the bead to that tire.
Scott Wimmer, by the way, splits this car in the 2008 season with Jeff Burton. Right now, Wimmer has run 12 events. His one win came at Nashville back in March. All told, Wimmer will run 23 events, and Jeff Burton will run a total of 12. The car will run the entire 35-event schedule itself. And remember, this is the car that won the Owners' Championship a year ago for Richard Childress. So we mentioned that Scott Wimmer is pretty good on flat racetracks, but he was a youngster. He did pretty well going downhill. Let's take a look.
I am Scott Wimmer. About the time I was 2.5 is when I put on my first pair of skis. Started racing actually when I was 5 years old, and raced all the way until I was about a couple years out of high school. I skied for the USSA. Had a great time, skied with some great skiers that are still skiing professionally. There's a lot of things that I've learned real young when I was skiing and been able to apply a lot of them in racing. I am Scott Wimmer.
The lovely gateway city of St. Louis, just across the mighty Mississippi. In the NASCAR Nationwide Series Cars and Stars, got to get it done. 9 o'clock Eastern Time on Saturday night. And can Joey Logano become a two-time winner? He and other young guns are here in force at this very demanding 1.25 miles just across the river. And here is the 17 car. I mean, we talk about Jamie McMurray getting back here driving for Roush Fenway. One of 6 NASCAR Sprint Cup regulars that'll be here to race tomorrow night. Jamie's best finish here, 8th back in 2002. We mentioned he will be in this 17 car last week for a number of events the remainder of the year. Only a couple more appearances for Matt Kenseth, who normally drives the 17.
Yeah, I think this is one of those weekends that, because it's close to home, so to speak, for Jamie, that it's pretty special for him. I know that he wouldn't, if this were somewhere else, he would probably like to have his last weekend off before they start on 17 straight in the Cup Series. But again, being close to home, he wants to get here, and I'm sure it would mean a lot for him to run well and try to get to victory lane.
Same car they ran with Matt Kenseth at Richmond back in the spring, and we'll update what's going on with those guys. Meanwhile, back here in the garage area, this driver here, the 19-year-old Landon Castle, will be our in-race reporter. And if you'd like to submit a question to Ask the Driver, go to ESPN.com, keyword Ask the Driver, and you just might have your question answered by this young man, Landon Castle. Dale Jarrett will ask him on the pace lap one of our questions and one of your questions from the mailbag. Let's go down and check in on the progress of Landon Castle here with Andy Petrie.
Yeah, Doc, they went out there, they made those changes, and Landon really liked the car. And what I liked, I was watching the monitor with all the guys here in the garage. The car got faster every lap, and those guys didn't even want him to come in because he just kept going faster. But they came back in, and Landon said that maybe that the front end needs a little bit of work. It's bouncing a little bit in the front. He called it a little basketball effect in the left front. So that's what they're talking about right now. They don't want to talk about it on the radio, so I guess they maybe have some things they want to try they don't want anybody to know about. Back to you, Doc.
Hey, Andy, you talk about a bouncing effect and basketball effect there. What would create that type of thing? Is this the coil binding, or is that a little too much left front shock?
Well, it probably is that coil binding effect, Dale. You know, these guys run these springs so soft that they actually sit basically on a spring that's totally collapsed. And when they go in the corner, this track's got a lot of bumps and character to it, and it makes that front end bounce up and down. You know, that's a real fine line on how they do that, because it can upset the car, the bouncing can upset the car, but they really want that front end down low and that back end up high to make the downforce.
You saw Chad Walter, the crew chief, there talking to Landon, and as you heard Andy say, they don't want to use the radio because whatever they want to discuss, they want to be able to just talk verbally and face to face and not let anyone know what they're doing. Now, you heard the word coil binding. Let's update exactly what we're talking about, what's happening here with DJ Cott. DJ?
Now, when you see the cars go down around the racetrack, and especially when they go into the corners, they travel down, and it's going to compress the spring. Now, the spring might look like something like this, sitting in the A-frame buckets, but when it travels, it compresses that spring all the way down to this. So what he's talking about when it bounces back up, it's probably coil binding, hitting each and every coil, and then it's springing back up, back into this place as they go down the straightaways. So that might be why he's talking about the basketball effect a little bit.
And that would explain why they were bouncing up and down, and then when it hits, it bounces it right back up in the air.
Yeah, that's just amazing. When we first started doing that with these race cars, it was just incredible, the feeling that it gave you. And it made these race cars go from not driving nearly as good in the corner, but running faster down the straightaway. And so as a driver, if you can go faster, you're willing to give up some of that feel through the corner to make it go faster.
Here's the 59 car of Marcus Ambrose, and the news is that not only this young man who's come from the NASCAR Truck Series, now to run full-time 2 years in the Nationwide Series, and the news this week is that his owner, Tad Geschachter, and one of our colleagues, Brad Daugherty, getting together to move forward with the NASCAR Sprint Cup operation for Marcus.
Yeah, that's quite ambitious for them. He's shown that he has talent, and especially when you get to the road courses. But you could see over the last couple of years just how much he started to adapt to this. Have they done exactly what they want? I know that he wants to win a race in this series before he moves on, but they continue to work towards that and make that happen. So trying to move on to the Cup Series will be something that I think he's very excited about, and to have that opportunity. So it'll be interesting to watch that progress.
Marcus hoping to be able to get an oval track win. He came so very close to getting a win at Mexico City early in the year. His best finish of the year was second on that road course. Let's go back to the garage area and check in with Mike.
Well, Doc, we told you about track temperatures being above 100 degrees, the ambient temperature above 90. Well, imagine being in a race car that was on fire. That was the case for Johnny Chapman not too long ago. In a bad situation for him, you can see inside the engine compartment an electrical issue is what he believes contributed to this fire. They're not able to replace the motor. They're trying to repair the motor inside this car. As you can see, this car does not have sponsorship. They're on a very slim budget, so they don't want to have to change the motor. They're hoping to rectify this problem, but certainly a big setback for Johnny Chapman. Dave?
Mike Carl Edwards has hopped out of the 60 car right now, and he had a whole list of things to tell crew chief Drew Blickensterfer. One of them was good. It comes off the corner okay, but what are the other issues you're dealing with right now?
Well, right off the bat, the track is real slick, or we had something real bad. We came in, and they said we had the right front shock on the left front shock on the right front, so we switched that and went way faster. We're actually pretty good on the sheet, but yeah, it just moves around quite a bit in the corner. And Drew said he had some science projects that he was going to work on, and it looks like Jamie's running real well, David's running real well, so hopefully together we can focus on this last practice and be good.
Looks like this practice then, even though it wasn't a lot about speed, you definitely discovered something. It was good to find out.
Oh yeah, we're learning. This track is real technical. You know, the turns 1 and 2 is so much different than 3 and 4 that, you know, all the stuff that you'd want to come here and test, you've got to get packed into, you know, an hour and 15 minutes. Because this last session is going to be, you know, a lot like what we race in, and that's the important one. So Drew said, if you can live with that, Carl, we're going to work on some projects, and we'll work on the car later.
All right, the crew goes off on projects, Doc.
They definitely found out that you can't swap the front shocks, so that does not work. It does not work here. But what did work for Carl Edwards was his performance here a couple of years ago. The young man from the Show Me State of Missouri came here, qualified on the outside front row. In the final laps, it was Carl Edwards who would lead 26 laps and go on to get his first win here in the whole state. He grew up saying, I always want to win at this racetrack, and on that night, he did it. Welcome back to Gateway International Raceway here in Madison, Illinois, NASCAR Nationwide Series. It is the first of 2 practice sessions today. And there's all the work going on in the garage here. There's our points leader, Clint Boyer, in the 2 car. Came in with a 183-point lead over Brad Keselowski. Boyer right now, by the way, is 9th quickest on the practice sheets. And as they're looking up to see where these guys are, here's the guy that's won it twice in the last 3 years, Reed Sorenson, in the 40 car, the Chip Ganassi Felix Sabates Dodge. And boy, how important would this be for this team, for Chip Ganassi, for Dodge? Dodge hasn't won since August of last year. They've not won in 2008 at all. And but we're talking about some of the other young guns, and here's the guy that Andy Petrie's been talking about down in the garage area. And that is Landon Castle, 19 years of age. And he has now, Andy, been moved up to 2nd quickest on the speed charts.
Yeah, Doc, they've been making this car better every time they've come in the garage. That last change was a very small thing. They just changed the camber in the left front, but it picked up about 2/10 on the racetrack. So you can see how it's all about the details of getting all these little things right. They'll go out there and make about a 5 or 6 lap run. Landon's then going to come down on pit road and stop at the little place the Goodyear sets up to do what we call a tire sheet, where they stick all the tires, check the temperatures, and see how they've got that car working.
Landon came here a year ago and in his debut on a very tough racetrack, qualified 6th and had his issues. Now we talk about what they're doing to make the car comfortable, make it turn. We're talking about changing camber. Let's go down to our ESPN Tech Center and have DJ Kopp explain to us exactly what camber is.
Well, Andy was talking about how Landon Kessel came in and got a Goodyear tire sheet. What Goodyear's doing is nothing more than coming in, taking temperatures at 3 different points across the racetrack. Across the race tire. And that's going to tell you just how much this tire is leaning in and out. Now, let's just say Landon's got a problem with the tire burning a little too excessive on the inside edge. The heat's going to build up, so they need to adjust that. They come over here with their camber gauge, they put it on, they figure out what it's at. Now, the right front is always at a negative, and the left side is always measured in positive numbers. So you get the measurement, and depending on how much of a temperature change was determined between the tire is how much of a change they'll make up here with these A-frame shims. Many different sizes, anything from a 1/16 all the way up to 1.5 inches. They loosen these bolts up that hold the A-frame, slide this shim down inside, tighten that back up, and that'll allow this A-frame to move back and forth, hopefully to get a better contact patch on the racetrack. So Andy's talking about a small change, makes a big difference. It's all about contact patch, probably help Landon Castle get a little bit more overall grip.
Exactly, DJ. Very good explanation. And for folks at home that want to understand exactly what tilting of the car is, it's all about changing the top of the tires. We show you here with this animation on camber.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens is we start going down the straightaway, this car going straight or just sitting, you can see that. But as this car travels, then it's going to go the other way. And so that's what we're trying to get, is the maximum amount of grip out of these front tires as we possibly can. You can see as the car goes into the corner and the car travels there, then these tires will straighten up. And that's getting as much of that contact patch of that tire on the racetrack as we possibly can. What you have to be careful of is going down these long straightaways. You might put more camber in that right front or in that left front, but what you're going to do is wear that side of that tire. So on the left front, is they're leaning that tire out, but down these long straightaways at this racetrack, you have to be careful that it doesn't wear too much there. You might get the perfect feel in the corner, but then again, it's hurting you as you go down the straightaway. So you have to be really careful. We see Joey Logano right here. This young man has gone to the top of the charts right now, and we said that it was kind of crazy on our part to think that he might be one of the favorites here because he's only in his 5th Nationwide Series start, but he's obviously adapted to this racetrack very well with a race team that has shown everyone this year they can win with a lot of different people in this car.
Yeah, a winner at 18 years, 21 days. And here's a 23-year-old Wisconsin driver. And we showed you last week that Kelly Byers' hero growing up was Matt Kenseth, and not a bad guy to want to emulate on or off the racetrack. Kelly had a good run at Chicagoland last week, and we will show you he's going out to get his car up to speed. And DJ, as you watch Kelly come up, a lot of these guys have been waiting to the middle point of this session to go on the racetrack.
Yeah, the sun has gone down a lot here, and even though turns 1 and 2 still have quite a bit, turns 3 and 4 have cooled off a lot, and the track temperature has gone down. So they're seeing conditions now that aren't going to be too different than when they start this race tomorrow night. So they're willing to go out there and use up a little bit of the time that they have left in this practice session to get a feel, and that way they have time in between the sessions to make the adjustments they feel are necessary.
Here's Brad Coleman. This year he's here driving a Ford for Baker Curb Motorsports. A year ago he came here driving for Joe Gibbs. And another one of the young guns, a 21-year-old driver who is learning, who realized that this kind of flat racetrack really suited his driving style.
Yeah, you know, it hasn't been the season that Brad wanted, but he's getting a lot of experience on these racetracks, and you can see the progress for him, actually, and I think his race team is actually trying to catch up to the talents that this young man has. So you see that happening, and you know that these guys, all of these guys, again, came from racetracks as far as the corners go that were very similar to what they're seeing here. They just have to adjust to the long straightaways and the speed that they're carrying into the corners.
Young guns continuing the flood into the NASCAR Nationwide Series, which means the future here is very, very bright. We've told you about Logano and Landon Castle, Brad Coleman. Chase Miller also here driving a Gillette Evernham Dodge. A young man who finished 8th at Darlington. James Busher, who just turned 18 back in the middle of March and has had 3 starts in the 32 car, all 3 with top 20 finishes. So a lot of impressive young guns just getting their careers started here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Why don't we check back in the garage area on one of the veterans, Dave?
That's right. Let's turn to some experience. Remember, last year's champion owner was Richard Childress, and that means that in this garage area, he gets the garage stall way at the front. Now here, it's separated by a building, so all those cars get to watch each other during practice. Over here, all by themselves, is the 29 car right now. Is that such a good thing? Well, it's actually not too bad, because right next to them it's NASCAR technical inspection, so these guys aren't going to get away with anything down here as a 29 car. Now, I just checked in to see what they were doing at this point. They were cooling the motor down, running it through as if they were going to take a practice qualifying run. I looked over at Pat Smith, the crew chief, and I said, "Are you trying to win the pole for the 2nd year in a row?" And he smiled and laughed. He said, "Why not?" So Scott Wimmer buckling back in. They've got a decent balance on the car. They've cooled it down, and now he'll try to take a fast qualifier, a mock qualifying run, Doc.
And how about Scott Wimmer getting his win early in the year? There was a lot of competition. Kyle Busch had issues after dominating the race in a 20 car. Clint Boyer just getting by, and the battle was a couple of Richard Childress-owned Chevrolets down to the wire on the concrete at Music City. But when they waved the checkered flag, it was Scott Wimmer who was singing a tune, because he was going to get that coveted Gibson Guitar Trophy and stand up as a winner in Nashville, Tennessee. Back with more in just a moment. Lots of racing action to come your way this weekend. Our motorsports calendar. We'll be here with qualifying live coverage 5 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN2. NHRA action, the Shucks Auto Supply Nationals qualifying. That's tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. NASCAR Nationwide Series live flag-to-flag coverage at 9 o'clock Eastern time here on ESPN2. IndyCar action over on ABC. The Honda IndyCar Grand Prix of Mid-Ohio Sunday at 1:30 Eastern time. Marty Reed and company. And then we'll finish it off Sunday night, 9 o'clock Eastern time. NHRA Shucks Auto Supply Nationals Finals on ESPN2. We just talked about Scott Wimmer, who was the pole sitter here a year ago, and he made the adjustments. And he is all the way up to 2nd spot here in the speed chart. See what he can pull off, maybe in a possible mock qualifying run here.
Yeah, this is a pretty good time for them, and they just went to the top of the charts now with the second lap there. So I think that's one thing they were seeing is they're looking at air pressures right here as to how much they can do and which lap is going to be quicker, that first or second lap. If the first lap was quicker, they probably knew that they were on the edge of being right there where they needed to be, or a little bit too high on the air pressure, and then they'll get Scott's feedback as to when the car felt the best. Does it take a lap for the tires to come in? And if that's the case, then they'll start that air a little bit lower to get that maximum pressure and grip in their second lap.
And here is the guy, by the way, DJ, that's now 2nd overall in the speed charts. Wimmer goes out and puts his car top of the charts. David Reagan goes out in the 6th car and now puts up the 2nd best time of the session. And he's still on it, trying to improve on it here. One more lap, see if he can get that car all the way to the top of the charts.
This young man's been very impressive to me, not only in this series, but in the Cup Series. He's just done a really good job, a solid job in both series this year. He's got himself right on the edge of the chase in the Cup Series, and he's up in the top 5 here. So he just continues to impress, I think, everyone out there with not only the abilities, I think everybody knew that, but how well he's learning the race cars and the race tracks. Dave?
And guys, just real quick, just checked with the crew, and that was not a mock qualifying run for David Reagan. So giving him some feedback now on that run right there. But apparently they weren't as taped up as they could be, or cooled down maybe as much as they should be if it had been a true mock qualifying run.
And that bodes even better for David Reagan and that team. The fact they didn't have it blocked off. And the ongoing, there's a discussion down in the pits. Brad Keselowski.
Amazing how much we get done with hand signals with each other, drivers and crew, and trying to figure everything out. But sometimes you can describe things a little bit better. I'm not sure they always understand exactly what you're trying to say, but makes it interesting. Brad's currently 5th on the chart.
And Brad told us down there when you and I were down there a minute ago, earlier today, DJ, talking, this is the first brand new car he's ever had at Junior Motorsports. Brand new race car. So I don't know if that's good or bad to bring a brand new car to a tough racetrack like Gateway.
Yeah, sometimes it makes it a little bit interesting, but I'm sure it's a car that they've had out testing a little bit and know exactly what to do. And they have things so refined now that you really don't mind bringing a brand new car to the track, because with all the pull-down rigs and everything that we have, the 7-post machine, you know basically what your car is going to be capable of doing, and that everything is worked out. Used to be when you took a brand new car there, you had all kinds of things dragging, and the front valence dragging, and the pipes dragging, so you weren't sure about that. But everything is such a refined science now that they know pretty much what they have whenever they get here.
Well, from Chevy to Ford, let's go over and check on the Jamie McMurray situation with Mike.
Well, Doc, as you just heard DJ say, with all the technology, all the wind tunnel testing and the 7-post, you have a pretty good idea, but there's still some value to on-track testing, and that's exactly what the 17 team is doing right now. I spoke with crew chief Pierre Coutel, and he said he's really not trying to tune on the car right now for the race because the conditions are so dissimilar than what they'll be encountering come race time. So what they're doing is trying to prove out some theories that they came up with back at the shop, and they're trying to put them into practical use here on the racetrack. In particular, they're concentrating on the front-end geometry. They've made some shock changes. They've also worked inside the hood. They've made some other changes that, of course, they won't tell me what they are, but certainly trying to prove out some of the theories here in the Roush Fenway camp.
On the racetrack, the 33 car, normally driven by Kevin Harvick, and here he's talking about his protege, another young gun, Cale Gale, the young man out of Mobile, Alabama, making his 8th start on the year. He's been a 3-time top finishing rookie with the best finish of 8th at Nashville early in the year. And if you want to know who Cale Gale's hero is, well, it may be a familiar name. Dave?
And one of the things that's interesting, they have been sort of fighting here in the 33 car, and Cale just radioing into his crew, that helped it there. His times were inconsistent. Crew chief Jason Meeks, who is on, I guess on the hot seat this week, somewhere he's been before, but crew chiefing this week in the interim situation for Kevin Harvick Incorporated, has got to do some work for him. He's been telling him those times have been inconsistent, and that was one of the things that that Cale was disappointed in himself with. So they're trying to manage the racetrack as well as the race car and help this young driver get his way around Gateway.
Exactly, Dave, and thanks for the update there. I started to say a moment ago, if you want to know about Cale Gale's hero, guess, folks, is a guy who can drive anything, anytime, anywhere, in any conditions. Let's listen in.
I like Tony Stewart. He's a racer. I mean, that's just all it is to it. I always liked him since, even when he was racing IRL cars coming up. The guy can get in anything, any day of the week, and be a threat to win.
What a dominating day for Tony Stewart.
He just gives it 110% every lap he makes.
He just drives his heart out all the time.
As a race car driver, I think that's something you should idolize.
Tony Stewart, 2-time NASCAR Sprint Cup champion, and how good has Tony been in the 20 car this year? That car has got 9 wins, 4 different drivers. Tony Stewart has won the bulk of those. He's won 5 times. And, of course, this weekend, making only his 5th start, the youngster Joey Logano. And DJ moving up the speed charts again.
Yeah, he's all the way up to 2nd now, so he's catching on to this place pretty quickly in this race car. And again, he just does a terrific job, and knowing that the crew, again, is excited about having him here. They're expected to win whenever they have Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin and Tony Stewart in that race car. I don't know how much they're expected to win with a young man that's only making his 5th start. So I think it's an extra challenge for those guys to say, hey, this is how good a race team we are. We can bring this young man along, put him in the best equipment, and we can really tell just how good he is and how good he's going to be. And getting back to the other guy that drove this car and has driven and won a lot of races this year, Tony Stewart, and Cale Gale, you heard say that was his hero. I think Tony Stewart's a lot of people's hero. It's not many times that you can say that someone younger than yourself, I don't know how many times you look and say, that's a hero. I admire Tony Stewart in a lot of ways because he has driven everything and he's won in everything that he's gotten in. And so that's been fun to watch with that. But this young man may break a lot of records before he's through.
Talk about getting into great equipment. With Tony Stewart moving on, making the announcement to be moving on in 2009 to a team he co-owns, Stewart Hart's Motorsports. So what about this young man? What's he going to do next year? Could he be in a cup ride? Let's find out what Joey Logano had to say.
I think it's a cool thing, but I'm not really letting it get to me right now. I'm focused on the nationwide races I got to run right now. And when Joe and JD say, let her rip, that's where we're going to go. But until then, I'm focused on this 20 GameStop Toyota.
A lot of speculation that this young man is so mature for his age and has so much talent he may get the shot in the 20 car in 2009. We'll give you a shot to look at some more nationwide cars and drivers when we come back in a moment. When you talk about great sports towns and great sports franchises, you got to mention the legends that played here in the Cardinals uniform, the St. Louis Cardinals. And beautiful new Busch Stadium downtown, but all the great names over the years. You saw them there, Enos Slaughter. And, of course, on a weekend when we're celebrating great efforts, we're talking about just across the river from Busch Stadium here at Gateway International. The city named after King Louis IX, home of the world-famous Gateway Arch. Metropolitan population, 2.8 million plus. And how about the Cardinals, Rams, and the Blues? What a great sports community here in St. Louis, Missouri. Last night, the Cardinals in action, and they had to rely on 4 home runs to beat the Padres, 4-3. That action downtown, this action just across the river here. Bobby Hamilton Jr. in the 25 car. Best finished 4th, and this team really seems to be getting better and better. This is one of the teams that's really come on in the last month and a half or so. This Ed Renzi-owned team with little Bobby.
Yeah, and I'm sure this is a racetrack it's the type of racetrack that he likes, and he was probably pointing to this track as they've made progress as to a track that they had a good chance at running well in the top 5, and then once you get yourself in the top 5, you look at trying to get that victory.
Watching Bobby Hamilton Jr. get up to speed in practice. By the way, Scott Wimmer, Joey Logano, Dave Reagan, Mike Bliss, and Brad Keselowski. That's a top 5 in this session thus far. Yeah. We told you that St. Louis is the home to a lot of legendary athletes over the years. How about some legendary race drivers by the name of Wallace? Let's go down and visit the garage area.
Athletic race car drivers are athletes. We know that, and Wallace has been doing this for a while. Let's get some local knowledge from him. He is going to take us on a tour of the city on tomorrow night's Countdown show, but for now, take us on a tour of your race car. It's been sitting here for a while. Is it okay?
Well, it was really good as soon as we unloaded, and we're limited on tires compared to some of the rookies that get an extra set in this session. So we're getting ready to make a qualifying run now. Landon Catholic coming in. It's hard to talk over him, but we're going to put a set of stickers on right now, make a qualifying run in the daylight. We qualify at 3 o'clock tomorrow. It's really odd how we practice and qualify and then race. Is practicing tonight, qualifying midday tomorrow, race tomorrow night. So we got to kind of strategically place our tires when we want to use them, and we're trying to keep this set of tires we start for the second practice session, know what we're going to race under.
All right, this Wallace keeping track of everything over here, Mike, in the 7 pit.
And Dave, from one famous racing family to the next, of course, we've got Jeff and David Green. Well, we've caught up with Mark Green, who so far is a bit of a surprise here. The 7th fastest time. How good's the car?
Well, it's pretty good, Mike. It's a surprise a lot of people, but this car we had at Richmond run really well in practice and qualified good with it. So it's a really good car for us. We made a little qualifying run there. Some of the guys haven't yet, but we're trying to emulate tomorrow when we qualify about 4:30. So, if we can kind of keep ahead of the racetrack, this will be a good car for us.
Yeah, how close can you get the car with the conditions the way they are right now to compare to the conditions you'll be encountering on Saturday night?
Well, it's really hard. We went out and shook it down to see if it was, pretty close, and it was. So we'll concentrate more on our second practice tonight for the race stuff. But you know, we got a little qualifying deal in there, and it was pretty good. So we got to get in the race tomorrow too.
Well, Doc, Mark brings up a pretty good point. It wasn't a surprise in Richmond when they qualified so well. Well, this is the same short track car they had back there back in the spring, so you can expect he might qualify toward the front on Saturday.
Yeah, that'd be a great effort by this team. You know, Brian Ross and company, his best finish 5th this year at Talladega. Now, here's the car that's normally driven by DJ Kennington, who runs 2 different series. DJ in Canada running a NASCAR Canadian Tour races event this weekend. And now Shane Huffman, a boy from our hometown, Hickory, North Carolina, getting a chance to get back in the 81 car and doing pretty well.
Yeah, you know, we talked to Shane earlier today, and he was just excited to have the opportunity to get back in a car and show exactly what he can do. He's looking for that break, and this is an opportunity for him to get back behind the wheel and come to a racetrack that he says he's enjoyed racing on.
You know, he drove last year for Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 88 car, was released from that ride, went to work for Rusty Wallace Incorporated sort of as a car chief over there, and he left there recently to get a great opportunity to be a crew chief in the Hooters North Pro Series for Pete Knight, the veteran owner over there, for the driver Travis Miller. So right now Shane is a crew chief, but this weekend he gets a chance to get back in and drive where he wants to be as a racer here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Speaking of being pretty busy each weekend, here's the 2-car of Clint Boyer, and he is the points leader. Clint, the winner at Bristol early in the year. You know, this weekend they interviewed Clint, DJ, and they asked him about, you know, how tough is it on you to run full-time in the NASCAR Sprint Cup and the NASCAR Nationwide Series? And he jokingly said, you know what, when I have an off weekend, I come back more tired than I did if I didn't have an off weekend. It's probably better that I race.
Yeah, and you know, he's a young man that enjoys driving, and he knows that these are opportunities that as he gets older, that they're going to kind of go away. So he wants to take advantage of that right now. We see him stalling on the wheel a little bit coming off of the corner, and that's what's going to happen here with the racetrack still having a lot of temperature in it. But, yeah, this is his opportunity to shine, and he can do this. The thing that sometimes isn't brought out, when these guys sign up to do both series, they're basically saying, okay, when we start in February in Daytona, we don't have a weekend off except for Easter. That's the only weekend that both take off as far as getting any amount of time. And so they're basically saying we're going to race from the beginning of February until the middle of November, and that's what we want to do, is be behind the wheel of a car. So it's a huge commitment on their part, but I think, as you can see with him leading the points, it's a decision that he's very happy with.
And next week, by the way, we'll be covering his efforts at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, whereas across town over at ORP, he'll be trying to go back and forth there and practice and qualify and run 2 events. Got to run over there on Saturday night after qualifying the Cup car at Indianapolis on Saturday afternoon. Here's a guy doing the same thing, and he made it work last year, talking about Carl Evers, the reigning NASCAR Nationwide Series champion.
It's not too tight. In fact, that time I got a little loose, kind of throwing it down into one.
You heard Carl talk about it. It wasn't as tight there, and he got a little bit loose getting down into the corner, and that's what you have to guard a little bit against, trying to get your car to cut the center of the corner and get straighter where you can come off the corner, is not getting it too loose on entrance of the corner. But I'm sure that Carl's willing to give up a little bit on that entrance if he can get his car through the center of the corner faster.
We showed you one Wallace earlier, Mike Wallace, and we told you that the Wallace family, St. Louis, very proud of the Wallace family. Of course, Rusty Wallace, the former NASCAR Sprint Cup champion, getting a weekend off. And we got 3 Wallaces in the field. All 3 of them will be carrying high-definition onboard cameras. Here is Stephen Wallace, 20-year-old driver, back-to-back 5th-place finishes at Richmond and Darlington. And boy, how much would this young man, you and I talked to him in the garage, how much would he love to get his first win in this series right here in the shadows of St. Louis, Missouri. We are at Gateway International Raceway here, live coverage of the NASCAR Nationwide Series practice session. And of course, we will be here for live flag-to-flag coverage tomorrow, 9 o'clock Eastern time at Gateway International. NASCAR Nationwide Series, 250 miles, 200 laps here on this very demanding 1.25 mile oval. Let's go down to Dave and check in with Stephen Wallace's teammate, David Stremme.
Yeah, Doc, we started the show talking about the agenda the 64 would have. Check those brakes. They're okay. Check the bumps in turn 1. They know what the car will do. And see how the tapered spacer acts with reduced horsepower here. Well, guess what? Cup driver David Stremme doesn't like it, the lack of horsepower. Imagine that. He says it feels a little slushy right now. In fact, Dale Ferguson, the crew chief, said, I may try to change intake manifolds between practices here just to see if there's something a little different that can gain us a little more horsepower. Stremme, to his credit, was trying to think of anything he could do. Back in the day when you had a whole myriad of gears ratios that you could run here, they shifted in turns 1 and 2, and Dave speculated on the radio, maybe I should try shifting in 1 and 2. They radioed back, if you do, please be careful.
And we'll explain maybe why, and the shifting is not a very viable opportunity because of some of the gear ratios. And this young man looks very pensive right now. What's going on with Landon Castle, the 19-year-old? Well, we've got Andy Petrie down there. We'll update you what's happening with the 5 car as we cover more practice when we come back to Gateway in just a moment. We told you they love their sports here in St. Louis. We're just across from the arch, and looks like the bottom of the order there. They've just changed pitchers here. They've gone with a right-hander. And let's see exactly. Looks like he's going to try to go with the breaking ball, trying to get the hitter to move in near the plate. And lined up. Well, you have to advance the runners on the balk there. Little NASCAR action, little fun in the infield. Hey, well, let's update what's going on with Landon Castle. He's been out for run number 5 for 3 laps, and they had changed the left front shock, and currently his speed now dropping back to 14th overall. Let's go down and check in with Andy Petrie.
Yeah, Doc, they haven't made their mock qualifying run yet, but Landon Castle, looks like the car's been pretty good. You've made a lot of good changes with it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You know, we're just trying to find a balance of, you know, how much grip to put in the rear and when to free the car up. And you know, you try to maximize how much grip these cars have and keep the balance where you want it. So, you know, just kind of tweaking on it right now, but we're still waiting for the sun to go down.
Yeah, does that sun going down, is that really going to affect your car? Or do you guys know what to expect when that happens, and are you adjusting for it now?
We're kind of tweaking on it now. I mean, we kind of know what's going to happen when the sun goes down, but you don't want to waste any time in practice. So, you know, we still tweak on it now, and, you know, hopefully we get it in a little bit.
Okay. Hey, Doc, they're going to put some tape on the grill and cool it down and go out there with some new tires and see what they can do.
Well, Andy, they haven't been out for their qualifying run, but a moment ago, the 7 car went out, Mike Wallace, and that was the cheer from the locals here as the Missouri native took his Toyota to the very top of the speed charts. And right now, when this session winds down, Mike Wallace is the fastest car overall. As we go down and check in with Dave, who's caught up with our points leader.
Clint Boyer and I were watching the baseball game in the infield. That was a definite balk, wasn't it?
Yeah, I ran out of breath saying, hey, bada. He never threw the ball.
I know. Big anticipation. How's your race car running right now?
Yeah.
You've been sort of, that too, back to racing. In and out of it, not a lot of laps on the track. What you got?
Yeah, BB&T Chevrolet's good. We haven't run a qualifying lap there, and we just kind of let tires cool off and went out and raced trim, and so far so good. It's kind of waiting around. I mean, you can't with the limited tire you know that you have here, you got to wait around, wait for that next practice when it's going to be more like the race. But it's been greasy out there. It's a little bit fun to slip and slide out there early, but I think so far so good.
Sounds like the same old Gateway, Doc.
Oh yeah, 1.25 mile racetrack, and DJ, he's talking about the limited tires. They're only allowed a limited number of sets.
Yeah, they've got 6 sets of tires that they can work with here, and obviously they don't know, but depending on cautions tomorrow night, they want to be careful. It looks like sticker tires are the best way to go here as we're watching Brad Keselowski go right around the bottom of the racetrack. He's 10th quickest so far, but they have to really be careful at how they go about these practice sessions. You know, they want to get the most out of it, but they also don't want to jeopardize themselves when we get into the race tomorrow night. And this was just one of the ways that NASCAR had of keeping the cost down in this series, and I think it's a great idea. It just makes it a little bit frustrating when you're a driver in a team and you want to get out there on the racetrack, but you know the best thing for you to try to win the race is to sit there and not practice too much.
And typically, I guess most of these teams will practice on 1 set of tires and then keep 1 set to qualify, which you got to start the race on, and that gives you, 4 in the pits.
Yeah, and you might make a mock qualifying race. You can see the stickers on the 20 car right here. He's going to go out and make a mock qualifying run. They're only going to get 2 laps on these tires. So he's sitting down at the end of pit road. He's waiting for his spotter to tell him that he's got an open racetrack. You want to make sure that when you go out there and put 2 laps on these tires, you get the most from it. So his spotter is going to let him know when there's a gap big enough for him to get out on the racetrack. You can see the front end's taped up. He's got sticker tires on it. And here in just a minute, we'll see just how fast this young man can go.
And why is it important not to go more than a couple laps? Well, at these temperatures here on the scorcher of an afternoon here in Gateway, with very little air getting in the front of the car, you do not want to be able to overheat that thing and take a chance on hurting the engine.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You see just a little bit of an opening there, just enough to get some air in there. And 2 laps around here, time you get up to speed and then run your 2 laps, you're going to be out there a little more than a minute and a half. So they've got just enough tape there to keep this thing cool through that. You heard him telling his spotter telling him to crank it up.
33, start rolling. Go ahead, start rolling.
He's still on the access road here, getting up to speed. And you got enough time down the back straightaway. You get into high gear. You can see the front end of this car, how high it is going down the straightaway. But we'll see it as he gets to the corner. It's going to be on the ground. And that's just what they're looking for. They run this coil binding situation just so they can do that, so they can get that front down through the corner and get the maximum amount of grip.
This is the second set of tires they're actually using here. This is the second set of stickers they have used, so they will have 4 left. But they're going to see what this thing will do with a set of brand new sticker tires here. And I guess they had to let Cale Gale get by, so even as quick as he was going to run, he would not run him down and have to get in the brakes.
Yeah, and you really don't want anything affecting this. As much as we talk about it being kind of like a short track, as we see him going down the backstretch into turn 3. But you can get a little bit of a drafting effect, so you don't want to get too close to a car in front of you because that could kind of mess you up, making you think that you ran a little bit faster than what you actually were capable of. So he wanted to give himself plenty of distance.
Joey Logano, 4 starts, 2 poles, a win at Kentucky. And I guess this little trick played off.
He goes to the top of the list right quick. And you heard Mike Wallace allude to the fact earlier that the rookies had an opportunity to have more sets of tires. The rookies are given 1 more set of tires just so they can get some experience on the racetrack. And he's going to continue to go and make a second attempt here. And he's the first car into the 33-second bracket. So right now he's beat the field by about 2/10.
33.91. He just didn't go to the top of the charts. He just shoved everybody aside and said, coming through. And Sliced Bread, his nickname, Joey Logano, all the way up, and he does not run better that time, but a 33.91. And second quickest would have been the 34.15 of Mike Wallace.
Mr. Consistent.
Well, how about let's see if Landon Castle can say, okay, I will match your 33.91, and I'm going to give you this. Let's see, he didn't go on the access road.
Now, tomorrow night, tomorrow afternoon, when they get ready to qualify, they're going to be allowed to go out onto the racetrack. I don't know what they're going to say to him about this, and different racetracks, NASCAR lets you do different things, but they will be allowed to go straight out on the track tomorrow night. It obviously didn't slow Joey Logano down any, but they will be allowed to do that tomorrow night. You're not supposed to during practice, but he took exception there and decided he'd make his own rule.
Now, I wonder what about the tires that he has on. We knew that the 20 car went out with sticker tires. Andy Petrie, the tires for this run for the 5 car, are they another set of stickers or what they've been running?
Yeah, Doc, this is a set of sticker tires they put on there. They did a setup check in here on the scales, put a sticker set on there, and they're going out there taped up, cooled down, and see what they got. See if they got anything for old Sliced Bread right here.
Remember, Landon Castle got his first pole and only his 15th start, got early in the year at Milwaukee. We'll see if this young man can move up the speed charts. He was 14th. And he's all the way up to second, 34 flat. And he is 9/100ths of a second slower than Joey Logano.
Yeah, and we see, again, these rookies taking advantage of having that extra set of tires that they can go out there and do that. I think Mike Wallace said that he might have done that, but we heard Clint Boyer talking about that his time that he put in was still on tires that he had been running. They just let them cool down quite a bit and then put the qualifying air pressures in them.
Well, this could shape up to be some kind of show here tomorrow night. You know, a 19-year-old and an 18-year-old. When you mix in people like Carl Edwards and Clint Boyer, Rudeman, Reagan, you know, Jamie McMurray. How about the guy that won it last year, Reed Sorenson, plus all these young guns? This could be fun to watch.
Yeah, he ran 34.02 on the second lap, so not a lot of difference because we saw Joey Logano run the exact same time, 33.91, on both of his laps.
And here's where they stand currently in this practice session. Logano, top of the charts. Landon Castle, second. Brad Keselowski in the brand new car for the Navy, 13th overall in speed. Back with more in a moment. St. Louis, Missouri, great sports town and a great place to watch NASCAR this weekend as they host for the 12th consecutive year the NASCAR Nationwide Series Stars and Cars. Our live coverage beginning Saturday night, 9 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN2 and ESPN2 HD. Well, the first practice session is officially over here for the afternoon, and at the top of the speed charts, no surprise, Joey Logano just went out with that sticker run. Landon Castle, Mike Wallace, one of the local favorites. Scott Wimmer, last year's pole sitter. How about Steve Wallace? They got a couple of Wallaces in the top 5. That could be an interesting battle. The Wallace family there. Maybe Steven trying to get his first win. There's the points leader, Clint Boyd, Cale Gale, the young driver for Kevin Harvick Incorporated. Last year's winner, Reed Sorenson. The Dodge driver, Chase Miller, and, of course, reigning series champion, Carl Edwards. Let's check in on the Brad Coleman team with Mike.
And Doc, Brad Coleman and I were just having a little conversation talking about you being 18th on the speed chart, but you said you're a lot better than that. In what way?
Yeah, our car was a lot better than that. The way it is here at practice at Gateway, you start out, it's real hot, and it gets a lot cooler as the practice goes on. So, I mean, as cars go out later and later in the session, they just get faster and faster. So it never ends until we get to the night practice here later on. So our car's pretty good, though. I mean, it's slipping around a little bit because of how greasy it is, but the CleanX Ford was it's pretty good.
You know, I know when we spoke back in February at Daytona, the optimism was very noticeable. You said you expected to win at least 2 races this year. Obviously, it hasn't gone that way, but how would you characterize the way the season has gone?
You know, we've had our ups and downs. We've had good races. We got 9th at Vegas there at the beginning of the year, and we just had our bad luck, too. I mean, we've blown tires, and it's just tough competing with all these Cup teams. We're a single-car team, pretty much, and we're based out of Nashville, Tennessee, when everyone's based out of Charlotte. So for what we have and the resources we have, I think my team's been doing a great job.
Doc, you may not have those 2 wins yet, but this is another opportunity weekend. Certainly the door's wide open here this week.
Mike, exactly. Another prime example of talented young drivers who have come on board. And he took a chance to leave the Joe Gibbs operation where he would have a limited schedule this year to come full-time to drive for Baker Curb in 2008. And there is the youngster, Landon Castle, talking to his very capable crew chief, Chad Walter. Andy?
Yeah, Doc, these guys are down here debriefing after they made that mock qualifying run. It was a really pretty nice lap. These guys coming up second on the sheet and talking about how to maybe get a little bit more speed out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to go faster. I don't know. What do you think, Chad?
Yeah, we need to be just a little bit better, but not bad. Practice, not bad overall.
I think we're good. I mean, it's you know, it's always good to be at top of the sheet, regardless if you're that good or not. So I think we can get it up there. You know, I was really anxious for the sun to go down and get a true reading of what the race is going to be like. You know, I don't think the race starts for another hour, so you know, we'll see how it goes.
Okay, Doc, these guys feeling pretty good down here in the 5 pit. Over to Dave Burns.
Andy, thank you very much. Caught up with Joey Logano, who clocked that fast time right at the end of practice there. And I'm hearing that if ever a sponsor was appropriate for a guy who's never been at a racetrack before, it kind of worked out for you this week?
Yeah, it worked out real good. I was practicing my game from GameStop this morning and practiced at Old Gateway here, and it seemed to work pretty good. Got out there and got to hang at a racetrack about 3rd lap and started working on a car from there. So that worked out really good. And I was pretty happy with it, actually. That's probably the first time we unloaded it, so that's pretty close, and we got even better. I'm kind of worried about what we do if I don't want to get too tight kind of thing, and just kind of working on it from there. Not making big changes. We mocked up there at the end of practice and got the old GameStop Toyota top of the board, so that was pretty cool.
I was talking with Dave Rogers at the very first of the session, and we were commenting how at Dover, you couldn't get the car loose enough quick enough. But here today, it started out pretty darn loose for you, right? They've learned.
Yeah, that's what's weird. Normally, everywhere I go, I'm tight, and that goes for anything. Whatever I get in, I'm always tight in the center, tight in the center. I went in there, and I backsteered to the right about to lap 2. I'm like, whoa. So that's definitely a good change. That means we're getting somewhere, so that's cool.
All right, and a very fast lap. By the way, guys, if you can look down here real quick, his wheels have a headache. I had to ask about this one. DJ, they ever put ice on the wheels of your race car in between practice sessions? Dave Rogers tells me the time between practice sessions is so tight that they want to bring those wheels down to ambient temperature just like they can. This was the mock set that they went out on, and if they want to use them again, they want to bring them right back down to temperature. So same thing over on the 5 I hear as well.
Yeah, normally in St. Louis, it's not wheels you want to ice down, but here at the racetrack in the afternoon heat, it indeed is. They got the blowers trying to cool off the rubber tires, cool off the Goodyear Eagles for the next practice session. Joey Logano atop the charts, Landon Castle second overall. Back in a moment. Sun starting to set over East St. Louis here. NASCAR Nationwide Series practice has concluded at least the first of 2 practice sessions. And here's a driver who's been awfully good here. He has run 10 of the 11 races. He leads all drivers with top 5s and top 10 finishes. That is Jason Keller. And some news this week, but we'll talk about what happened on the track here a moment ago in practice first. Mike?
And we'll get right to the heart of the matter. Sure, certainly. This has been a pretty good racetrack for you, Jason. How good's the car now?
It's pretty good. It's kind of one of those typical practices. We didn't make a mock qualifying run, so didn't put a big PR lap down, but always like coming to St. Louis. It was home for our series sponsor for so long, and now here we are. So raced here a lot of years and had some good runs.
Speaking of PR, and Doc just alluded to it, an alliance has been formed, and it was announced this week with Joe Gibbs Racing. Obviously, it's got to be a pretty good team for you, a good thing for your team, knowing that's the organization that's dominated this series so far in 2008.
Well, it definitely has, and you know, this team's growing, CJM, and I feel like that we're gonna benefit greatly from that. Hopefully, I'm part of that in the future. I really don't know how that's gonna look with everything, but don't know the details about it. Really don't. I mean, we're gonna focus on our 08 program. Todd and everyone here has got their nose down and doing a great job, and miss big guy, he's still at home watching. It's great that he's doing better. So you know, we got a lot to focus on right now. We will benefit from that as we go along here in the future, but right now we got a job to do.
Well, Doc, as you heard Jason say, it's pretty much an 09 program, but for the time being, I've been told that if they have a question, they can call over to Joe Gibbs Racing, and they'll do whatever they can to help them.
Yeah, Mike, what a great opportunity for Todd Gordon, Jason Keller, Tony and Brian Mullet. It's a technical support program. They will get information and access to the 7-post rig from Joe Gibbs Racing. They will not get cars or engines, but they will get a lot of support. And how valuable will that be to this team in 2009? Back in a moment. Welcome back to Gateway International Raceway. Practice is over. Let's check in one more time in the garage area. Dave Burns has called up with Brad Keselowski.
And with David Rudiman, and they're checking out each other's hero cards here. We noticed that Rudiman looks pretty happy in this shot here. And David, what'd you say about Brad? He looks what?
Man, Brad looks mean. Look at that. Look at that intensity. You don't get that just anywhere.
So who has a better race car right now, you or the 99, do you think, Brad?
Wow, I don't know. I didn't really get a chance to look. David's been real good at these flat tracks, Loud in Milwaukee, so he'll probably be the guy to beat. But still real proud of everyone on the U.S. Navy Chevrolet. We've had some good cars lately, too, and this is my first brand new car of the year, so hopefully we can get it running up front and put it in victory lane here at Gateway tomorrow night.
Both of these guys, lots of fans, and surely contenders tomorrow night.
And David Rudiman was very good here a year ago, but he's yet to win this year, and Brad Keselowski has won. In fact, his win coming at Nashville in his 49th career start back in June. And there you see his numbers for 2008, 12 top 10s in 20 starts. DJ shaping up to be a very good race here tomorrow night.
Should be exciting. We've got a lot of young guys hungry for a victory.
Practice is concluded as we are set for a final session tonight. Tomorrow we will have qualifying and the race. For Dale Jarrett, Andy Petrie, and our entire ESPN crew, I'm Jerry Punch, once again inviting you to join us at 5 o'clock Eastern Time tomorrow for live coverage of NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying. And at 9 o'clock tomorrow night, NASCAR Nationwide Series flag-to-flag coverage. It is the 12th year that the Nationwide cars have come to run this unique 1 1/4 mile oval. Remember, 5 times the winner here has gone on to become the champion. Coming up next, Showtime Championship Boxing from Carson Center, Carson, California. A lot of young guns hoping this is an opportunity weekend. Could one of these guys be the next to go to victory lane? The veterans are here, but the youngsters believe that this could be an opportunity they can't pass up to win here along the mighty Mississippi. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. So long, everyone, from Gateway.